Anytime George Balanchine made a work for you, it was an incredible circumstance. The wonder was he knew us so very well, and he would choreograph to our best points. So when I first heard about Bugaku, I got all excited because I had remembered the New York City Ballet having gone to Japan, and I remember that Lincoln Kirstein had invited the Bugaku to dance with the New York City Ballet. And it was shortly after that that George Balanchine had decided that he would commission a score with Western instruments, but trying to make as authentic a sound as possible. And of course, when we began rehearsing and Mr. Balanchine began to put these gestures together, it was naturally amazing and sensational.
And yes, we were surprised, but also at that point, of course, thrilled. My gosh, to be selected by Mr. Balanchine for anything. Well, we were in the company, and it was a long time ago. New York City Ballet, what could be better? But we didn't exactly know what was going to be created by Mr. B because he said very little. So it started in a sort of Japanese classical ballet mode for the girls, but suddenly the men were more samurai. And so they were more authentically Japanese, and we were sort of an interpretation of the sort of chrysanthemum delicacy of, but then suddenly our costumes changed, and I'll give this to you, Eddie.
The costumes certainly were organized to make us look as though we were going through an incredible ritual that had very erotic kinds of aspects to it. It was very difficult to determine whether this was a marriage ceremony. That's more or less the sense that I was taking from it. But it could have been anything. It could have been something that was going on in the palace. Who knows? We didn't know. But we did know, finally, the steps and especially the counts for us basically to ride on. George Balanchine had a wonderful, wonderful phraseology. He said, the floor is the music upon which we dance. So for us, well, for me in particular, I had to get so familiar, my ear had to get so familiar with the sounds. It was an extraordinary experience in a ballet that will never, ever be surpassed. No one will probably have the abilities or the mindset to get inside 1,000 years of Japanese culture and provide us with qualitative entertainment.
And delicacy, and also the costumes were by Karinska, very beautiful, and at a certain point we had long transparent kimonos that floated out into outer space. The set was gorgeous. It was created by David Hayes. There was the green floor cloth, the red ramp, sort of the way, very Japanese in style, but it's a masterpiece, and maybe it was a little shocking for that era.
Well, it might have been, but
just
coincidentally,
hark.
Here's a tribute book for, I believe it was a New York City Ballet anniversary, and lo and behold, Allegra and I turned out.
We made the cover.
I've never danced a Japanese-oriented role before, so one had to make explorations to find out what your point of departure might be. Allegra has suggested Japanese film. I was kind of more of that sense of looking for samurais and Japanese sumo wrestlers, and to get a kind of lilt and a heaviness about what this character could be.
So I was looking at films about that particular era. So, I mean, sort of in different ways we were approaching it,
Yes.
and also rehearsals.
And also, of all things, not only did Balanchine choreograph it, but he explained a couple of internal aspects of it. I will never forget, prior to the pas de deux, the full corps is out there, and we, the two principals, are. And we had to have a moment where we were almost nose to nose as we were turning. And I'll never forget what Balanchine said. He said, you know, it's like two goldfish in a bowl. So little insights like that, I just loved and adored from him. He would give you just a little hint, and then you would have to gather it and reintroduce it.
He didn't say a whole lot all the time, but
No, just a
Just
couple of words.
a few clues or a few words.
Well, the first thing I remembered was, and it still is, the curtain goes up on quiet, and you sit and patiently watch the stage. And then you began to hear a sounds that we certainly didn't associate with classical dancing. And because of the wait, and because it also took another few minutes for that overture to proceed before the dances came on, and the audience got a little skittish. They weren't fully aware what was going to come about. It was wonderful that there was this kind of unease. And when we finished the ballet, the unease was gone. It was a wonderful, immediate audience success.
Yes, of course, I was backstage and really wasn't sensing the audience in the beginning because we were listening to our musical cue of the corps girls start walking up the green ramp and then I follow. But so I wasn't sensing anything about the audience, just that sort of undulating sound of the beginning of it. And then we come on, and then... So the audience was spectacularly thrilled. It's been a long time, and there's been many other people interpreting these roles, and we want to go back to the original feelings, the original movements, the original intentions. So we don't want it to go somewhere that it shouldn't be going. It's a kind of a delicacy of sensibilities, and so the people we coach and Edward's company is now doing, we have to keep them within this delicate area. But I mean, not that it's delicate, but you know, it can't go somewhere else.
Absolutely not. And I will say that in terms of the actual performance, in terms of the actual steps for the guy, they were certainly suggestive of Japanese. But for me, the biggest challenge was the pas de deux, because it wasn't your typical 19th century grand pas de deux. So we needed to understand all of that and bring that into our characterizations. In addition to which, I feel very comfortable with Allegra here so that we might be able to provide our dances with the way this was originally intended.